Oops. Hello and welcome to Half Wheel's PCA 2021 Countdown Show number 4, or I guess 2021 PCA Countdown Show number 4. Anyway, my name is Charlie Minato,
and I'm Brooks Whittington.
and we are here at the Half Wheel offices in Dallas, Texas for the final one of these countdown shows. Hopefully there are more than, the numbers are dropping and not doing well. Yeah. Who knows? It was higher earlier.
Welcome back.
Maybe. So we are here to talk about a topic that presumably should be a little bit more interesting than the last ones. And there's echo again. What?
Thanks to Tyler for letting us know.
All right. How about now, Tyler?
Is he the only one here?
Jesus. I'm concerned that it may not have gone live on Facebook. All right, so Tyler seems to think we're good to go.
Thanks, buddy.
Let's see if did it make it on it did make it onto Facebook. Look at that. All right, so
Awesome.
Now that we've dealt with our weekly technical difficulties, or at least some of them, we are going to first talk about a contest.
Yes.
Which, Brooks, grab that thing. Mm-hmm. All right, so the way this works is we are giving away, or Drew Estate is giving away, 3 of these longboards today. They are custom painted by Subculture Studios, which is the attached art studio to Drew Estate's facility in Nicaragua. This one is a Jerez Norteño branded longboard. They could be any number of other brands, whether it's a regular Jerez one, or maybe a Oliva Prada, or an Acid, or just general Drew Estate, or Subculture. Some of them have some other themes, but they're all hand painted. They tend to be different. I think the kind of goal here is to make different ones. They do not come with trunks. They do come with a included wall hook. And in order to get entered to win one, all you need to do is ask a question at the end of the show. You ask a question on either Facebook or YouTube. In the comment section, Brooks will pick his 3 favorite questions, and we will answer them at the end of the show. And the terms and conditions are otherwise on the screen.
So ask lots of questions.
Or just some at this point.
More than 3. At least 3. Oh. Thank you. So with that out of the way, Charlie, what cigar are you smoking?
I am smoking. It's a really good thing we don't have a show next week. I'm smoking the Mildius in the, I believe it's a Sublime size. That band's probably just going to be blown out. Yeah. Anyway, I was curious. It's a cigar that I really liked last year. This is from that box that we reviewed last year. So one of the things I mentioned in that review that I remember, which is pretty shocking that I remember a review at this point, was I was curious to know whether or not these cigars could remain consistent. I was more referring to new production as opposed to the cigars that were in my box, but I figured. Nonetheless, here we are. Brooks?
Yes, I'm smoking the H. Upman Noea. That was at the from the La Casa del Habano exclusive jar.
All right, now they're claiming the echo's back. All right, let's see if that fixes it. This is just an absolute train wreck in terms of...
Oh, not yet. It can be worse.
Oh, it definitely could be worse. I mean, my computer could crash again. How many Noeas did you have to cut this morning to light one up?
One of them was plugged, yes, and one of them was not. This is actually smoking very well, but the first one was definitely plugged.
So the ratio is 2 cigars. Cut 2 cigars, light 1.
That's correct. That's it's not bad for Cuba.
Yikes. All right. With that out of the way, hopefully the echo's gone. I don't know.
Tastes great though.
That's good to hear. All right, so these are the 10 new cigars that we want to see / smoke. It's weird to say because I'm guessing that we will smoke very few of these cigars at the trade show. for a number of different reasons. It's tough for us to smoke cigars at the trade show, given all the things that we do. A lot of times there are very limited amounts of samples. And to be quite honest, like if I was a cigar company, you should give that cigar to a retailer who might actually buy things. Not to say that Half Wheel doesn't buy cigars. We spend money, but we certainly don't buy as many cigars as a retailer does. You know, a lot of these cigars, I would say, are probably likely to have very limited amounts of samples. So maybe we just get one. So we're not going to do a puff pass. I think for any of the cigars on the list, though, I would say that if any of the cigars made for a puff pass, that would be a good indication of just how much we're looking forward to smoking it. But we will try to follow at least some COVID safety protocols this year. The other thing I would say is that these are cigars that are 99.9% going to be there. So there are some cigars that have been announced or that we have sort of been told are coming, but we haven't been able to sort of not absolutely confirm, but confirm that they're coming. I think the most prominent example is the Arturo Fuente and Padron collaboration, which Arturo Fuente and Padron have both said they are doing. They have not said anything about it basically since last year. It was announced at the time last year that it was going to be targeted for the PCA show, but it's not clear if that's still going to happen. It would not surprise me one way or the other if the cigars are or are not there. So that cigar wasn't eligible here. The other thing is we created a list of total of 10 cigars, but we each put 5 of the cigars that we particularly want to smoke on the list. This is similar to the other live shows that we've done. There are some cigars on here that are overlapping, if I'm not mistaken. We'll try to point those out when we get to it. All right, so with echoes hopefully out of the way, Brooks, do you want to get started?
Yes, indeed. So my first cigar is the Fratello Harlequin Gordo. Now, this cigar is part of the Fratello Harlequin line, obviously. The Harlequin line was actually debuted in 2019 as part of a sampler that Omar put together to test to see if which cigars blends people like, so that he could produce them. And this was one of the 2 that the new blends that were actually put into production. The new size is a 6x58. Will retail for $11 and come in 20 count boxes. Now, the line is made up of a Mexican San Andreas wrapper, Ecuadorian Habano binder, and fillers from Nicaragua and Peru. Now, one of the reasons I want to try this so much is that I've liked the other Harlequins that I've tried, but they have been a little bit spicy on the palate, which I think you mentioned in your review, Charlie. But I'm hoping that the larger size, the 58 ring gauge, will give it just a little bit more, give the flavors a little bit more room to breathe and have a little bit less spice in terms of the palate itself. What do you think?
So I apparently didn't like the Harlequin the first time around. I
certainly liked it better than you did.
I don't remember what cigars I reviewed last week, but I apparently did the Harlequin review. It got in the low 80s. And I guess I thought it was too spicy, apparently. Yeah, I think if we had to poll all the reviewers, I don't think we particularly enjoy smoking 60 ring gauge cigars for their sort of thickness, but I had long been on this train back when, 60 ring gauges were sort of taboo, that some of them do taste better because some blends work better in certain sizes than they do in others. And despite, I think that our, and certainly you, Brooks, your reaction to most blends is put it in a Petit Corona or put it in a Ninfa, or we'll compromise and we'll put it in a Corona Gorda. And a lot of times it just doesn't work. And yet putting it in a 60 does. So maybe that changes it there. The other thing, obviously, is that some cigar companies choose to sort of say, this is the blend. It's 25% this, 25% this, 50% that. And we're just going to keep it the same across sizes. Most do not. So it wouldn't surprise me if this Harlequin Gordo has a slightly different blend, even if all the tobaccos are the same individual components, given the size difference.
Yeah. Very good points, Charlie. What's your first cigar on the list here?
That's a good question. It's the 60 by Rocky Patel. And I guess I'd forgotten that we have pictures for this thing. So it's going to use a Mexican San Andreas wrapper over a Nicaraguan binder and Nicaraguan filler or fillers. It's according to the company, been aged for 2 years after being rolled at the Tavacusa factory, which is something that Rocky Patel has sort of started to market recently, certainly with ALR and ALR2. Those were both cigars where he said these were rolled, I believe, a year or two before they were released. It's, you know, for Rocky, it's a premium price point, $15 to, my notes say $16.75 or $14.50 to $16.75. And so I think there was a time, certainly 10 years ago, where it would have been surprising to see Rocky Patel on this list. Part of this is that there are not as many options to choose from for the 2021 version of this list. But also, like, Rocky's earned a spot here. Every year, Rocky Patel seems to put out 3 new lines at the trade show. Every year, Rocky Patel will, the man will tell me, this is the one that I particularly like the most. And then every year, it seems like I choose a different one amongst those 3 blends that really stands out. But some of them have been excellent. The 2 that sort of come to mind are the 20th Maduro, a cigar that I still enjoy smoking, as well as the vintage 2006 San Andreas, where Andreas was spelled wrong. But, you know, the cigar was quite good, and obviously this uses the same wrapper, so I'm curious to try it. And obviously, happy birthday, Rocky. He celebrated 60 years earlier this year.
Happy birthday, Rocky. And I agree with you 100%. I think Rocky is... I think some people on the forums and Facebook groups are a little harsh on Rocky and Gurkha as well. And I think that a lot of the cigars that Rocky makes would be surprisingly enjoyable for people if they actually gave it a try. One of my favorites, Charlie, the Edge Nicaragua. Extremely good cigar for the price, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but I think part of the issue is that Rocky gets paired with Gurkha, and like that, and I just don't think that that's a fair. Very
different companies, obviously.
Two very, very different business models, 2 very different companies. You know, they just happen to be owned by 2 people that are from the same subcontinent, and as such, or their parents are from the same subcontinent, and as such, seemingly get grouped together, which I don't really think is at all realistic for how those companies are run these days.
All right, so
I just sort of called you a racist. All right, next up.
That's very awkward.
White privilege.
To be clear, I was speaking specifically about how people were reacting to the 2 companies, not that they were in any way related. But okay, we'll go from that. So my next one, the Oliva 135th, which is not the anniversary of the Oliva brand. That's not true. It's actually the anniversary of the first time that the patriarch Melanio actually grew tobacco. Now, this is a brand new Oliva V, Serie V blend. Same blend as the rest of the Serie V, only it comes in a 5.5 by 54 Perfecto. Looks kind of like a bullet, to me anyway. It looks like a bullet. Very unique shape, and not one that the Serie V has actually had before, has included before. That's not great English, but you get my point. The blend, as I said, the same. Ecuador wrapper, Nicaragua binder, and Nicaragua filler. What else? $10 each. And they'll ship worldwide in boxes of 12, 15,000 total. Boxes of 12 will ship worldwide in October. We have a whole bunch of Serie V, Charlie. We seem to collect them. What do you think of this new shape here? It seems very, very unique.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing a cigar that looks like this. That certainly there have been plenty of cigars, including other Serie Vs, that have had the round cap and then the tapered foot. This one's a little bit different in the sense of how elongated that taper is, as opposed to something like the Diademas that Oliva's done multiple variations of over the years. I don't, I'd be very surprised at this point if we can get a Serie V that tastes dramatically different than the other 40 that they've released in different shapes and sizes over the years. The Culebra is obviously the one that really stands out as being quite a bit different, and also might be the best Nicaraguan cigar of all time. So there's that. I suspect this will taste like a Serie V, which is a good thing. It's a very good blend. And one of my favorites, amongst the regular stuff, the Churchill Extra for me has always been the size. That was the size that I really started smoking Serie V in. It was a little bit too strong for me at that point. But for me, the Serie V Churchill Extra, the middle of it, there's like a 5-minute period of bliss that's awesome that I just don't find in the other sizes. Obviously, my preference towards Lanceros, that's a good regular production Lancero. But this is interesting. Obviously, packaging is super unique.
Yes. So the photograph on the lid of this box is actually a photograph of one of the farms in Esteli, Oliva's farms in Esteli. And
it appears to be a photograph of like all of Esteli, if we're being honest here. Like it's I think
the whole country, or
no, of like the city. I think it's taken from it. The idea here is the painting is looking into a farm, but you obviously see like the whole valley of, I don't know which direction that is, but there's a lot going on in that background of that picture.
Not the first time that Oliva has used art for its boxes. In fact, the Master Blend 1.
No, most companies use art for their boxes. Brooks.
Yes. Had a
removable lid.
Removable lid, thank you. That you could actually, with art on it, you could actually hang up on your wall. We have one in the office somewhere.
We do. And if you're wondering, like, hey, did they miss the part where they're going to talk about the upcoming live shows? We did not. This is the last one for very obvious reasons.
Indeed.
All right. So next up is the Mi Querida Triqui Traca number 448. This is a cigar that we are at Half Wheel intimately familiar with. It's a cigar that is got one of the more confusing yet very consistent backstories. So it starts with the regular Mi Querida blend, which Steve Saka releases. He then makes a special size of it called the Firecracker for Two Guys Smoke Shop and United Cigars of New Hampshire. It's a retailer. Two Guys is, at least. United is their distribution company. Two Guys had a cigar made for them back in, I believe, 2006, the Don Pepin Garcia Blue Label Firecracker, which was a 3.5 by 50 Parejo with a extra long pigtail that presumably was made to simulate the fuse of a firecracker. Interestingly, not the fuse of a stick of dynamite or TNT, because there is no fuse for TNT. Anyway, it's a size that Two Guys used for any number of different cigars from various manufacturers: La Flor Dominicana, Perdomo, Foundations, the most recent one. RoMa Crafts made one. There's a very long list, Fratello, etc. They have their own firecrackers they make. So Saka made a few batches of this in this 3.5 by 50 size. But what he did, and a lot of the other manufacturers have done, is he tweaked the Mi Querida blend a little bit to make it stronger. And he then said he's going to release that cigar outside of the firecracker size, but as a new line called Mi Querida Triqui Traca, which was Half Wheel's, or the consensus, not Half Wheel, but the consensus #1 cigar of the year in 2020. And the Mi Querida Firecracker had previously made Half Wheel's top 25 in other years. And so Saka continued to make more batches of this for Two Guys. But this past year, or maybe late last year, he was having conversations with the retailer and said, hey, look, I can make more of these, but they're not going to be at the same price point. They're going to be quite a bit more expensive. And the Firecracker, the Mi Querida Firecracker, debuted at like $6. And Saka, I don't know what it would have cost at this point to make it, but to give you an idea, this 4x48 size, so it's very similar to the 3.5 by 50. Saka said he thinks it's going to retail somewhere between $9 and $10 per cigar. So obviously, quite a bit of a jump in terms of the price, which Saka says is due to the increase in cost for materials. So instead, we're not going to get the Firecracker, but we are going to get a pretty close cousin of it in this size. And I like the Mi Querida blend. I particularly like it in the shorter sizes. He's got I think he's got a similar size, the 4x48 in the regular Mi Querida line, which I like a lot as well. I was a big fan of the Firecracker. I like the Triqui Traca blend. And so I'm curious to see if this small size, sort of is just another hit. Brooks? I was going to say home run, but I don't know if I'd call it a home run.
I'm curious as well. I did like the Firecracker, and I think he'll probably nail it if I had to guess in terms of, how good it is compared to the original.
Yeah, I think the only question is whether or not this actually comes out this year. Because,
it's a lot of money for a small cigar like that, though.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. All right. You'll see.
Specifically, or?
No, you'll see.
Okay.
I've got some thoughts on that. You're next up?
Can't wait. So, my next up is the Crown Heads CHC Serie E. Now, this is a brand new release from Crown Heads, one of many that we'll get to in a minute, I imagine. And the name, the CHC, stands for Crown Heads Court. The E stands for Eruption. If you're wondering if Eruption is the same eruption as the Eddie Van Halen guitar solo, you'd be correct. Yes, it actually
Isn't it a song?
No, actually, it's a guitar solo before a song, Charlie.
So it's not a track?
It is a track, but it is not. It is an instrumental that came before the song.
Is an instrumental not a song?
Hmm?
Is an instrumental not a song?
Don't know. Somebody else can answer that.
But it's not like the guitar solo is part of a larger song and is called Eruption, right?
The guitar.
I was not alive for any of this, so this is very confusing to me. Keep going.
You weren't alive when it was released?
I have no idea. I'm just gonna go with. I'm probably.
Hey Charlie, what's your opinion on Sammy Hagar as the lead singer of Van Halen?
I know that most people don't like it. Van Halen.
5150, big fan of yours?
Well, 5150 is the size of the cigar. Van Halen. I have a very eclectic taste in music. There's a lot of old music. Not saying that Van Halen's old, but there's a lot of music that's far older than Van Halen that I enjoy. For whatever reason, Van Halen's just not for me.
Great band.
Yeah, like
Lots of jumping.
That might be the issue. But just to clarify here, it's not like his guitar solo in another song is named Eruption.
That's correct. It's a separate.
It's a track called Eruption, or maybe a song. All right, keep going.
Oh, okay. So anyway, Huber, one of the owners of Crown Heads, is a big music guy, and so this is no surprise that it was named after something musically inclined. However, this is a blend. Blend is Ecuador Habano Oscuro wrapper over Jalapa Nicaraguan tobacco in the binder, and a filler made of all Nicaraguan tobacco from the Jalapa, Ometepe, and Pueblo Nuevo regions. Now, 4 sizes: 4 3/8 by 52, 5 1/2 by 50, 6 1/8 by 48, and a 6 1/2 by 54. All of which will retail between $11 and $12.25, shipping in August. Now, the interesting thing to me about this is not just Crown Heads. I'll try anything Crown Heads put out. I'm a fan of most of their cigars. However, the interesting thing to me is actually the Ometepe in the blend. I am not a fan of Ometepe. I've never liked Ometepe. It tastes kind of like eating dirt to me. However, there are a few blends that I've tried that have a very small amount of Ometepe in it that I've really liked. And so I'm wondering how this blend is going to taste with that tobacco in it. Charlie?
Yeah, I'm with you on the, I'm going to try anything from Crown Heads because the floor for Crown Heads is pretty high.
Are you with me on Ometepe too?
I'm not a huge fan of it. It's not
awesome.
It's not my least favorite tobacco in the world, but yeah, it's amongst the Nicaraguan regions. Interesting, Tabacalera Pichardo really likes Ometepe from what their blends seemingly indicate, and also Pueblo Nuevo, which is not a tobacco that's used very often either. I had sort of 2 moments of pause when I got the press release for the cigar. One of them is that Crown Heads has just a lot of regular production lines, and I'm curious to see, or curious to know if we've reached a limit, and am wondering how close they are to sort of taking some of them. And you've seen what Taiwan's sort of done in recent times where they've said hey, we're going to take these out of rotation for a couple of years and then maybe bring them back. We did an experiment yesterday because Brooks didn't really believe me when I was making this point that I didn't think I could name half of Crown Heads as regular production lines in 15 seconds without some preparation. I believe I just barely cleared half. But we counted 14 yesterday.
14 is what we counted, not including the limited production, correct?
Yeah, and that doesn't include things like Heather Grange Black Dog, which are, from what I understand, a regular production line, but only sold through an exclusive retailer. It doesn't include things like the regional editions, like Yellow Rose or Buckeye Land. So there's just a lot of SKUs. It's honestly tough to keep up with. The other thing I will say, we don't have a graphic for it here. We do have another picture of this box though. Is that the pricing of these cigars seems a bit off to me. Not that it's too expensive or too cheap, but the individual sizes are priced in a manner where the 6 by 48, is that the size?
Hold on just a second. I'll bring that up because we should know that. So the pricing, 4 3/8 by 52 is $11. The 5 1/2 by 50 is $11.50. The 6 1/8 by 48 is $10.25.
Yeah, it's just because this is going to confuse people here. So
the largest size, 6 1/2 by 54,
the longest size,
sorry, is 6 1/2 by 54 is $12.25.
No, what's the third size there?
Oh, it's the third one. Yeah,
the 6 1/2 by 48 is the one that's
6 1/8 by 48 is $10.25. The 4 3/8 by 52 is $11,
which doesn't really make much sense to me.
Right.
But I also have not bought hundreds of thousands of cigars from a cigar factory, so I don't know if what's up, but I did ask Huber, and he was like, no, that's the size. I thought for a second maybe one of those sizes is a torpedo, because torpedoes are more expensive to roll than Parejos. That's not the case. I don't think that should detract from any of the cigars.
Certainly not.
The price points there are perfectly fine for the modern cigar industry.
It's just a little
weird.
Interesting to see is all.
Yeah. But, curious to try the cigar nonetheless.
Indeed.
All right. The next one on this list is Stillwell Star. It was not on this list yesterday at this time, but Saka unveiled some more details, and so we're going to talk about it. It is the newest release from Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust, or one of the new releases from them. When you saw Steve Brooks at TPE in May,
yes,
he told you that this was going to be the most controversial cigar released in 2021.
That is exactly what he said.
I think he exactly said, I think this will be the blah, 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 blah.
Not exactly, but I mean, that's the gist of what he said. Yes. I don't know the exact quote, but that's the gist of what he said. And it's going to be interesting. We know nothing about this in terms of at least I don't know anything about why it's so,
well, it's still not entirely clear there, but I would just like to point out here, because this is what the Mi Querida thing that I was like, I'll talk about this later. I don't know if I would consider Steve Saka to be a marketing genius, because there's a lot that's implied there. But Steve Saka 100% knows what he's doing. And this is I
think I would suggest that he is a marketing genius when it comes to cigars.
Maybe, I don't. Yeah. You could argue it, but I could. It depends on how you define it. Like, whatever the case is, my point is he 100% knows what he's doing. And this is the latest in a long line of cigars that Steve Saka has disparaged before trying to sell. And it's absolutely hilarious that the collective cigar industry, not necessarily the industry, but the retailers and the consumers fall for it hook, line, and sinker every time. We've had other examples of the most prominent one was the Sin Compromiso, as well as the unicorn where he was like, this is too expensive. If you buy it, you're dumb. Every single cigar, more or less, that he's released with Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust, he's been like, the tobacco costs what it's going to cost, and it costs this much to get rollers and bunchers and boxes. And, I just price them all the same. I don't adjust the margins. It's too expensive. No one should buy it. There are a lot of great cigars for less money, but we'll make as many of them as we can sell. And if no one wants to sell them, then I'll just smoke them all. And he's been saying that shit ever since this company launched, with pretty much every release. He technically, I guess, has not said this yet with Stillwell Star. He just said it's going to be super controversial. It is interesting. It's super interesting. So it uses an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper, whatever. It uses a Mexican San Andreas Negro. Well, it's not interesting. Like, congratulations.
That's not interesting part about it.
Yeah, if Padron was like, hey, we're using Ecuador Habano, that would be interesting.
That's not the interesting part.
It uses a Mexican San Andreas Negro binder, specifically the Cultivo Tonto binder, which is or the Cultivo Tonto tobacco. It uses a binder format of it. He used that tobacco for Sin Compromiso. The way he described it, and the reason why I said Cultivo Tonto, is he says that the way that they grow that tobacco is they have the plants growing and then they just tear off all of the bottom leaves, so that way all the nutrients can go to a very specific set of leaves. It means that the plants obviously yield less because you're destroying a whole bunch of leaves, but the leaves that you do get are presumably more nutritious. And so it's not surprising that he's got some binder of this, because when you have wrapper, you always have binder. But the interesting part is they are all 6x52 Parejos, Toros, whatever you want to call them. He has not disclosed the filler blend, but there are going to be 4 6x52 Toros with presumably all different fillers. And he's not said anything about them other than that the cigars are, I think he said, mild to medium plus or something. And
they're all going to have different foot bands, is my understanding.
They're all going to have different foot bands, which will help to explain some sort of secret that might explain why it's going to be controversial. For those wondering, I have asked him. He did tell me that he is not using CBD, because that seemed to be like a cheap way to get to be the most controversial cigar of the year.
It's been done, so.
Yeah, but it certainly, I think, would be different if Saka was doing it versus Riste.
One of them is going to be called White Privilege.
No, the names are like number 1, number 4, number 151 or something. They're all numbered.
Okay. Well, interestingly enough, by the way,
they're also $15 a piece, or that's allegedly what they're going to be priced at.
I do believe that Saka could actually smoke all of the cigars if he didn't sell any. He smokes a lot. But regardless of that, I apparently am his first media.
Yeah, that's not going to matter, though. Someone's going to walk over that booth at 9 o'clock in the morning and have a conversation with them.
Maybe.
But you can have a sticker that says, "I'm Steve Saka's first media appointment."
That'd be awesome.
Saka,
if you don't mind, you can get on that.
I dramatically protested
Like
Steve Saka's appointment system at IPCPR 2018, and
how'd that go?
it went. And this FedEx guy that just pulled up is going to kill us. By the way, he's got a lot of packages for us. Anyway, well, it didn't go very well. So I protested it, but he was like, no, you need to make an appointment. And I made an appointment. Do you remember what happened at IPCR 2018?
I don't remember where
so there was a little bit of a
was, or even what happened at the year.
There was a little bit of a fire, and then it was a small fire, but there was smoke that set off the smoke suppression systems. And then the trade show got delayed for that day. So instead, I got an email from Saka that said your appointment's been canceled and then it said reason fire. And I was like, Saka, that's why we don't schedule appointments, because they're fucking useless.
Should make a shirt with that on it.
All right, keep going.
All right, so my third cigar on my list is the Asylum PCA Exclusive. Now, Asylum, not something that I smoke a lot of in the past, but the interesting thing about this, and one of the reasons that I really wanted to try it, is the fact that it is a Honduran Puro. Not really been a fan of Honduran tobacco, and especially Puros. However, when I smoked I wrote it down here. What was it? The first 20 years, Diadema. I was blown away by it, and really, really great.
Which is from CLE, technically, not a
cigar. I was talking about the tobacco. It is a Honduran Puro, correct?
Yep.
So, and I'm really interested to see how Asylum approaches this, and if I'll feel the same way about it. It is a Honduran Puro, as I mentioned. 3 sizes: a 5x50, 1118, which is their infamous size, I guess. 6 1/4.
No, famous. I don't think there's any negative connotations with it.
/60, famous, and a 6x60. Shipping 4th quarter. So they'll come in 20 count boxes, which apparently always function as ashtrays.
Yeah, that's what the press release said.
That's it. There you go. So I'm really interested to see what you thought. The first 20 years was quite good as well. It actually got 7th place on our top 25 in 2019.
Yeah, I think that both,
which means that all of us had to like it.
Asylum and CLE, which are related companies, as well as, and CLE is owned by Christian Eiroa, as well as the other company owned by the Eiroa family, JRE Tobacco Company. They have both been doing fantastic work with Honduran Puros. And when Brooks put the Asylum PCA Exclusive on here, I had suggested, why don't you put the Asylum 9 on here? Because the Asylum 7 and 8, which were released in 19 and 20 respectively, and then the 9 is for 2021. They've both done quite well in that Perfecto size, or the Salomone size. But he was like, no, this is Honduran Puro, and I was like, all right, I get whatever. It makes sense. I
didn't care because they're all Honduran Puro. So
yeah,
it doesn't really matter which one.
The reason behind them is the same. I would also be remiss to say that CLE has the crown heads, you have too many regular production lines problem, to a whole different level of problematic. So there's a lot of cigars that they make and attempt to sell. A lot of them are very, very good. And if you're like Brooks and you didn't like Honduran Puros, I would highly recommend trying one of them from CLE, or one of them from Asylum, or from JRE, if not one from each, because I think there's a lot to like, particularly if you're into a medium full profile. Like that's really where the sweet spot seems to be for these Honduran Puros with the Eiroa grown tobacco.
Yeah, just full of flavor, and just really, really, I was blown away, and they good stuff.
Ed Ryan just asked if we smoked the 20-minute Tom. You just reviewed that, right? That was the one that looked like the other 4x48, but
right, yes, I did just review that.
Or did you? Which one did you review?
No, what?
Did you review 20-minute Tom, or did Patrick do it?
I don't know.
One of them scored really well. One of them's top 25 eligible, and the other one's not. But yeah, we did review
Somebody look that up and tell me who reviewed that.
But yeah, we definitely reviewed the 20-minute Toms. I just can't remember because they made 2 cigars with the same.
They were exactly, literally, they look exactly the same, and
well, the wrappers don't look the same, but
no, I mean the
bands are the same and the size is identical.
The band is the same.
All right, the next one on my list is on my list and not on Brooks's list because he can't pronounce it. So do you want to try?
That's exactly why I did not choose this, is because I could not pronounce it.
He's not lying. Like that's.
I love the idea. I just didn't want to I didn't want to try to pronounce it on the air. So thanks for making me try to pronounce it on the air. I appreciate that. La Poussière. La Poussière. La Poussière?
There's a T in that name.
I thought it was silent.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I don't speak French, although John, we have got a Canadian in here, so he can probably tell us how well I butcher this. Le Pâtissier would be my guess, but I'm guessing I'm not.
What? The R is silent? Why can't the T be silent?
I don't think T's are silent in French, but once again, don't speak it. Anyway, so this is another cigar from Crown Heads, made at Tabacalera Pichardo. It's a 6 1/4 by 44 Lonsdale, which that would make Brooks's list just by itself. The reason why it's on my list is not necessarily because of the size, but rather because it's a follow-up to another cigar that Brooks may or may not be able to pronounce called Le Carême, which was released at Crown Heads. Came out with a handful of years ago. That cigar is made at EP Carrillo. It's Tabacalera La Alianza, which is EPC's factory. Whereas, look, our pizza's here, so we're going to speed this thing up. So, Brooks, do you want to go deal with whatever it's at the door?
You want me to leave?
Well, it's easier for you to leave. And I'm happy to do it. Talk time. Yeah, Brooks doesn't come back. He just quit. Patrick, you can have his office.
Just walk right out.
All right. So La Pâtissier is here. You want to take my phone too? Is a 6 1/4 by 44. The DoorDash guy's calling. It uses a Connecticut broadleaf wrapper over a binder from Jalapa, Nicaragua, and then fillers from Costa Rica, as well as Ometepe, which is in Nicaragua, the island that Brooks does not like tobacco from, as well as Pueblo Nuevo, which I mentioned before, is a tobacco that Tabacalera Pichardo uses. It's not something you see listed very often in other people's blends. RoMa Craft notably uses it. And RoMa Craft's sort of origin for using it is because Latin Cigars, which is the old Toronto CAO factory, they used Pueblo Nuevo back in the day. And Esteban Disla, who's the partner or a partner at Nica Sueño, the factory that makes RoMa Craft cigars, used to work at Latin Cigars, which is where that Pueblo Nuevo connection comes in. I'm a huge fan of the Le Carême blend, particularly in the limited edition smaller Bellicoso size, which for me always sort of brings me back to fresh Opus X, which is really odd given the blend differences. This is not the same blend as the Le Carême. It's obviously not made in the same place, but I'm curious to try it because, like I said, big fan of the Le Carême blend. And yeah, so still don't think that we got the French thing figured out there. One interesting thing about this cigar is it's limited, but it seems like it's going to be one of those things where they're going to limit it based off the amount of orders they take. So if you like the cigar, encourage your retailer to place orders, and maybe there'll be more of them. But it seems like it's going to be kind of a one-time thing. Although with Crown Heads, these type of things tend to come back annually. So maybe we'll see it again next year.
Yes.
Any other things about Le Pâtissier? I mean, you're interested because it's a Lonsdale, and
I love the size.
Yeah, so it's a bit of an, it's a bit longer a Lonsdale. I mean, we're gonna go to the next slide.
Traditional Lonsdale?
Yeah. Well, there is no such thing as a traditional Lonsdale, but it's a different conversation. All right, Brooks.
Well, let's have that conversation. So my last cigar on my list is the Tatuaje T110 Capa Especial. Now, anybody who has been with Tatuaje for a long time and smoking their stuff for a long time, Capa Especial typically means it has a Sumatra wrapper on it, and the T110 is no exception. The Sumatra wrappers, some of my favorite cigars from Tatuaje has had that Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper, including, I've got a list here somewhere. Boris, Little Boris, NHC, Capa Especial, CQ1, and pretty much one of my favorites from Tatuaje, Bombazo Capa Especial.
The original NHC, though, was so much better than all the rest of them.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
But
that original NHC was, I remember when Dan Reeve of Cigar Press fame,
he was handing them out, wasn't he?
He gave them out at the Cigar Press party. He gave me one and was like, "You got to smoke this." And I smoked it, and then you came over and were like, "What is this?"
Give me one. What is that? Give me one.
Yeah, and well, no, you were like, "It's because it's the NHC like house blend." Like you're like, whatever. But Dan was right. That cigar was something else. That particular batch of that wrapper was
amazing. Yep.
outrageous.
And it was wonderful. But like pretty much anything that he's put into that with that Sumatra wrapper. The interesting thing is that T110, the original T110, released in 2009 as an exclusive for Arfield Wine Company. I want to say RJ every time. In Honolulu, Hawaii, and that T110 was based on the blend of a cigar called the Thermonuclear, which was never released, but it was given out to certain people, and apparently was so strong that it made people throw up. That was your?
I was like 8.
8.
Yeah. No, it was like
2009 was a good year.
If I'm not mistaken, the Thermonuclear was like the story was that somebody like basically dared Pete to make a cigar with 100% Ligero, which may or may not have been. I
didn't think 100% Ligero would burn.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. And then I guess I'm trying to remember here, but Cane,
I guess.
The Oliva brand Cane, which promotes itself as 100% Ligero, came out post Thermonuclear, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, we've seen some other people try to claim all Ligero cigars. The T110, the new one, which just came out, the regular one, the one you see in the picture there in the middle, is a very, very strong cigar. I don't, times have changed and things have sort of, I think the average cigar being released today is a lot stronger than it was 10 years ago. And so it's not as jarringly strong as it might have been 10 years ago. And that's one of the interesting things with me with a lot of these older Tatuaje legends that are sort of coming back. I was not smoking cigars when the original T110 was released. You smoked one.
I did. I had a whole box of them, in fact.
And
it was good, but it was strong, and that was my problem with it. It had good flavor, but it was just too strong for me to really enjoy personally as much as I would have really liked to. And I put them away and smoked them over the years and gave some away, and I wish I still had that box. But regardless of that, one of the reasons I really want to try the Sumatra version is because I'm really interested to see how that wrapper plays with the filler and if that strength is toned down a little bit on that blend, and how those two
it could even be stronger.
Could be,
which is one of the interesting parts here.
How the flavors will react to each other. I have virtually no interest in trying the broadleaf version. I mean, I guess I'll try it, but in terms of actually wanting to buy it or smoke it or whatever, I would rather have the Sumatra. I'd rather try the Sumatra just because I have such fond memories of that wrapper, even though it could possibly be not as good as the broadleaf version.
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting because it's like, okay, the regular T110 blend is too strong or not too strong, but it's stronger than I would like a cigar to be, and I think you and I are both in the same place there. Not like
still a good cigar. I still like it quite a bit. It's
just, and to be quite clear, like I smoked it
for 2 years,
and then smoked another cigar, didn't vomit. So like, it's not that the strength is making me sick. It's just it's strong and it's supposed to be strong, and it kind of takes away from some complexity. I would agree with you normally on it, like just to pick a random Tatuaje blend. Am I more interested in the Sumatra version than the broadleaf version? Probably. That being said, we're also operating with a filler blend that you and I may not think is the greatest thing in the world.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But that's why I want to try it.
For those wondering, all this blends together at this point, but you didn't go over the details about.
Oh, sorry. No, I apologize. Yeah. So the Sumatra was 50 boxes of them have actually already been sold. They were sold at a release at Grand Cathedral. And all of the 3 of them will ship nationwide after the show, but there will be limited, very limited.
Yeah, just to clean this up in the easy to go format. So from left to right here, the broadleaf version, to our knowledge, has not been sold yet. The middle one is the re-release of the regular one that was sold. Arfield once again got boxes of them. They sold them. We bought some from Arfield, but they've not been shipped elsewhere. And then the one on the right, the Capa Especial, like Brooks said, 50 boxes were.
Get a box of this?
What, the Capa Especial?
Right.
Do you not remember the whole base camp when you were like, this looks different? And then somebody who should not be named was like, actually, I think that's the same thing, and then closed out the to-do?
No.
Okay, well, that's why.
Oh.
Because for a little while, we were operating under the idea that they were the same cigar. Because
okay. I'm sure we'll get a couple of them. Having said that, interesting note, Charlie, we actually don't have a Thermonuclear in our collection.
Nope.
It may be the only Tatuaje we don't have in our collection.
No, we're missing Robusto sampler. There was a Robusto sampler that came out.
I've got one of those.
No.
Somewhere. I do. I've got one in the cooler.
With the ashtray?
With the ashtray.
Oh, well then, yeah, then the Thermonuclear would be the only.
Somewhere. I'll put it in the collection. But if anybody's got one, hit us up.
Although the thermonuclear was never sold, so it also there are a lot of stuff Taiwais that have never been sold that aren't in the collection.
This is true.
So,
but I'd like to have that for the T110.
Yeah, I get that. All right, the last cigar on the list, on my list as well, is the Cavalier Geneva LE21. We do not have pictures of this, so
good luck.
Look at our faces, I guess. The reason why this is on here is because, well, first of all, it is a 6x54 round cigar, not box pressed like the 2021 or the 2020 version was. It will be a barber pole, but the blend is not disclosed, so there's that. The blend for none of the Cavalier Geneva LEs have been disclosed, and that has not stopped them from scoring well. The 2020 LE I reviewed and it scored well. I forget if it was a 91 or a 92. A very good cigar, an umami bomb. We found out yesterday Brooks has not smoked it yet, so you'll have to take my word for it.
I have not.
The original, and so that cigar was a 6x54 box pressed. The 2021 is a 6x54 round. I don't know if this is going to be the ongoing pattern, but they Cavalier did a similar thing with the 2018 and 19 versions. The 2018 was a 4 3/8 by 58 box pressed, and then the 2019 version was a round version of that cigar. The 18, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it was the 19, Patrick LaGreed reviewed it and then reduxed it and gave it like a 94 or 95. And so obviously some very, very high scores from a brand that I think many people have not heard of or smoked very much stuff from. Cavalier is the brand that has the gold foil diamond or square at an angle that's on the wrapper. It's made to smoke through it. It's edible gold, so health and safety be damned. But it's gimmicky, but it also helps because people refer to Cavalier as that's the one with the gold foil on it. But they do make some very, very good cigars. They make good cigars at affordable price points, which seems odd with the gold foil. They also make some really good limited edition stuff, and I'm very curious to see what the LE21 tastes like, given how much I enjoyed the LE20. There's no guarantee it's the same blend, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think this is a brand that a lot of people, again, probably may not be aware of, or not be aware as perhaps they should be. And they make some good stuff, and definitely give them a try if you like that full flavor type blend. Very, very good stuff.
All right, Brooks, let's get the questions.
Yeah, you still have time. Give me a question, and so I can choose it, because at the moment we don't have enough. So let's go with Tyler. What brand do you think needs a big year, or they risk falling out of the spotlight and risk becoming another mediocre cigar brand? That's a. I think you got the gist, though.
Yeah, well, the tough part here is that most cigar companies had great 2020s because of the impacts of COVID. So I don't know about that. I would say the one.
Perhaps they're talking about more of a media.
Yeah, no. The one brand. I mean, it feels a bit punching bag like, because it gets mentioned in all of these conversations. But the one brand, I mean, it's half what we're gonna be honest, that stands out to me in this regard is Warped. Warped would really benefit from a good year of well-received releases. Their 2019 and 2020 stuff, a lot of it just fell flat for me. That was a brand that when it I guess reintroduced itself, however many years ago that was, with La Colmena and some of the other stuff. La Colmena is the one that I really enjoy. That they were, sort of on top of the world when it came to, ratings and things like that. The packaging with Warped has been fantastic from start to finish. They work with El Tite de Bronze and Tabacos de Valle de Jalapa SA, TAPSA, which is the factory that makes a lot of Louisiana stuff. And so they work with good factories or well-known factories that people like to smoke a lot of cigars from. The packaging and the branding is great. And the cigars for a while, kind of lived up to the expectations, but certainly in 19 and 20, I was frustrated smoking a lot of those Warped cigars because they just weren't as good as they were. The new blends weren't what the old blends were. They were releasing stuff. Black Honey was a notable one. That was a cigar that I loved. It came in these smaller tins of 10. And the second release of Black Honey was just not very good, or
not
very
as good.
It wasn't as good.
Not as good.
It was mediocre, I think, is the best way of putting it. It wasn't plugged like that Cuban you tried smoking earlier, but it was not.
I don't think I'd put it in mediocre, but I'd put it definitely. I was expecting.
I mean, the issue.
I was expecting more and didn't get it. So.
Yeah, but the problem that Warp's got is when you set the bar for your brand at a certain level, and then you miss it, and you miss it consistently, you could still be making better cigars than company fill in the blank, but we expect better of Warped. And Warped also charges money that will lead you to believe those cigars should not be average. They should be a lot better than average. And there were problems there. All right, Brooks, what's next?
All right.
Do you have one?
No, I was going to say Warped as well. That's a great choice on your end, Charlie. I'm looking because there's a dearth of questions. How about that? Have you seen a trend in blends or sizes being released this year, Charlie?
No.
The answer is no. All right. And finally, let's go with the Platinum King. What's your most anticipated new brand?
Like new company?
That's what he says.
Well, it's his new brand, but are we talking because we just did a whole thing where they
Platinum King. Let's assume that he is talking about new companies. Are there any new companies?
Yeah, there's at least one. I mean,
that would be the most anticipated.
So there's a variety of companies that have been out but are going to the trade show for the first time, and so they might end up being like more. They might be considered to be new companies. Drunk Chicken Cigars is one. Very interesting name. They've been selling cigars though. They told me they have over 80 accounts, but this will be their first show. Drunk Chicken Cigars. Yes.
All right.
Awesome. The one like straight up new company is there's a company called Casa 1910, which is based out of Mexico, and they, from what I understand, have not sold any cigars yet, so they will be like 100% new. So I guess they get that award by default.
I'm really looking forward to the Drunk Chicken.
I think we have some Drunk Chicken cigars here, actually. One of the podcast people came over and brought some.
How about that?
Yeah.
Love that. All right.
So if your name got read, send me, or don't send me an email. Send contest@halfwheel.com an email by tomorrow at noon Central Time, and you will be put on the spreadsheet. Joe Grow, who asked us what pizza we got, you got what, pepperoni?
Pepperoni and crushed something. What crushed? The
garlic.
Garlic, yeah, that.
I got
and oregano. Was it basil?
Some sort of chicken and pineapple thing. This is a pizza place that I normally like. I'm a huge margarita pizza fan. Their margarita is fine. It's a lot for those of you in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But I tend to find that their more obscure pizzas are the better ones. So there's that. But anyway, if you
pizza blog coming soon.
If you won a contest, or if you got your question read, you won a contest, you're eligible to win one of those skateboard decks. Send an email to contest@halfwheel.com, and Joe will ship those out to you sometime next month, hopefully. We appreciate all of you for watching and dealing with our various technical issues over these last 4 shows. There will not be a show next Friday because it's the 4th of July weekend, and we have a lot of work to get done before we leave for Vegas. But once we get to Vegas, there will be some live shows. We're not going to do the big live interview multi-person show that we've done in the past. As it turns out, we have just a lot of things to do in Las Vegas, and that thing was a huge time suck. But what we will be doing is on Saturday, July 10th, we will start the trade show, and it's in earnest. And every morning we will have a one-on-one interview. So one of us, as well as Brian and Patrick, will interview a brand owner, brand ambassador, someone like that. And then later on in the day, we will also have sort of a take your questions, sort of shorter live show with one of our writers. You can ask them all sorts of questions about the show. But until then, I am Charlie Minato. That's Brooks Whittington. And over there is Cold Pizza. So peace.